Hi everyone. In our previous session, we demoed how to record and upload several HTML services. The things that was common to all of those services was that they were all what we are calling full services. A full service is a service that starts from the entry point of the application, which is usually the login page, and then goes through all the pages to the target page. In our case, it would be the absence list page to get the output that we want from it or do the actions that we want to do on this page. A full service has many advantages. It is a very stable service. It is not dependent on anything. It will always work as expected. However, sometimes it might have performance issues because it needs to go from the very beginning and gets to the point where we want to do the actual actions for this service. So in some cases, we might want to create another type of service, which is called a partial service. Partial service is a service that starts from a specific point in the application, and from that point, it does what it needs to do. Obviously, it would be much faster, but the disadvantage is that such a service is dependent on an open session because it needs another service to get it to the point where it starts. That is, go through the login, go through all the pages and get to the point where it starts. And only then, and with this session ID, it can continue and do whatever it needs to do. So it is faster, but it is dependent, and we need to do some session management to make it work correctly. If to read more about full services and partial services, please refer to our user guide. In this session, I will just demo how to create a partial service. So in our example, where we have a page with few list of values, we might want to create the services that gets the outputs of this list of values, gets the options of this list of values as partial services. We want to get into the page just once and then invoke services that assumes that they are already on this page and they only want to get the values from this page. To do that, we will start as we always do. We will create a new test case. But as opposed to full services, instead of copying the full flow to get to this page, I will only copy the line that verifies that I'm on the correct page. So that would be this line. I'll copy it and I'll put it as the first line for this partial services. That is, I want to verify when I start that I'm on the correct page. And now that I'm sure that I'm on the correct page, I can just take the values of this LOV, and we already know how to do that. We'll use store select options. We will point to the correct field and give the output parameter name. So my service only contains 2 lines. I assume that I already got to the right page, and then I only need to collect the options, and that's it. So I'll save it. Okay, this is my service, and now I'm ready to upload it to my service manager. So this is the one. And please note that when I'm uploading a partial service, I will see in the UI the keyword partial to notify me that this is not a full service, this is a partial service. I need to set the output as multi-record because it returns multiple values, and that's it. And now I have this partial service. The thing is that I cannot test it right away like I did with the full services, because if I try to run it, it would say that it failed. It doesn't have a session ID, an open session ID. Like I said, partial service depends on an open session. So to test it, I need to put it to invoke it after I'm invoking a full service and passing the session parameter to it. And to do that, I can do that by creating an application and calling the two services one after the other. This is one option. And usually when I'm developing an application, this is what I will do. But here, just for the test, for the sake of testing the service, there is another option for me that the service manager provides me. And this is to use our automation tool, the RPA. With the automation tool, I can easily create a script that calls two services, one after the other. And this is exactly what I want to do. I want to call a full service, and then after that gets me to the absence list page, and then after that, call my partial service. So I'll just demo to you how I do that, only to create a wrapper service that enables me to test my partial service from the service manager. This is only for the sake of testing it. The actual service is the partial service, and you can use it right away from an application once you're calling it with a session ID. So just for the sake of testing it, I'll create an RPA scenario. Let me call it demo absence get status tester, because I'm just using it to test it. And the first thing I need to do is to call a service that is a full service. So I'll use one of our services that we already created, like get absence list. This is a full service. And after that, I'll call my partial service, which is demo get absence, where it is, status list. This is the one. And one thing that it is important, when I'm calling the full service, I need to tell it to keep the session alive. In our RPA model, I just need to click this checkbox, which tells the service to keep the session alive, not to close it, so the next service will be able to use it. And I will publish it as a service. And if I go to the services again, I see here the services that I've just created. This is a JavaScript service that actually, let's see the code of this JavaScript service. This service calls the full service as the first service, and then it says keep alive, which means don't close the session after calling the service. And then it calls the partial service, and the partial service will get the session ID as parameter automatically from this JavaScript service. And the output would be the output of both services, but I don't need that. So I'll just remove the outputs from the first service and leave only the output of the partial that I want to see. I'll save it. And I'll just run it. And now it worked. It returned me the list of values of the partial service because, as I said, I called a full service, I passed the session, I didn't close the session, I passed the session ID to the partial service, and the partial service was able to execute. So this is how you create and use a partial service. As I said before, to read more about full and partial services, please refer to our user guide. Thank you.